The serology unit of the FBI laboratory examines blood and other body fluids. Evidence is generally concerned with crimes of violence. This shirt with its reddish-brown stain comes from a suspect. A preliminary examination of the stain is made from a sample. Benzidine reagent, followed by dilute hydrogen peroxide, produces this blue color. It indicates that the stain could be blood. To confirm that it is blood, a microchemical test is made for hemoglobin. A small piece is cut from the stained cloth and placed on a microscope slide. Which is then covered. A reagent is applied. Then the slide is warmed. When it is placed under the microscope, the examiner can watch the characteristic crystals being formed as the sample cools. These crystals establish the presence of hemoglobin, a positive test for blood. Next, origin and blood group must be determined. These tests will determine whether blood is of animal or human origin, and if human, of which blood group. Small pieces of the stained cloth are placed into test tubes. Cuttings from the unstained cloth are similarly taken, placed in test tubes, marked, and serve as controls. Sufficient samples are placed in the rack for both tests. The location from which each cutting is taken is marked. So is the test tube in which the cutting is placed. This number and its location are also recorded on the examiner's worksheet. These samples will make it possible to compare the dried blood found on the suspect's shirt with the liquid blood of the victim. First, known blood serums are added to both blood-stained cuttings and unstained controls. The rack is placed in the refrigerator overnight to allow the samples to absorb the grouping serums. This liquid blood sample from the victim was received in a sterile container without preservative by airmail special delivery. Since receipt, it has been under regular refrigeration to keep it cold but not frozen. To determine the blood group, first a portion of the liquid blood is centrifuged. This separates the heavier blood cells from the lighter serum. After a few minutes in the centrifuge, a liquid blood grouping slide can be prepared. The recessed wells contain both cells and serum, to which testing solutions are added. The slide is then agitated for a short time to expedite the grouping reactions. Now the slide can be read microscopically, and the examiner can determine the blood group of the victim. With this test completed, next step is to determine origin and grouping of the blood found on the suspect's clothing. After remaining overnight in the refrigerator, serum reactions have taken place in the test tubes containing the blood-stained cuttings and the unstained control cuttings. Before testing for origin and grouping, these dried blood samples must be centrifuged. Now the samples for origin tests are withdrawn from the centrifuge, and specific anti-serums are added. The reaction which takes place tells the examiner whether the sample is of human or animal origin. If it is animal, the family can be determined. Here the examiner sees that the sample is of human origin. disproving a common alibi that the blood stains came from an animal. The grouping samples were also centrifuged. Now they have been placed in the wells of a grouping slide, and known blood cells are added. Again, agitation speeds up the reaction time, and the slide is now ready. Next step is to determine to what group this human blood belongs. The examiner reads each recess of the slide microscopically. The result tells the group of the blood stains on the suspect's shirt. Even if identical with the victim, they do not establish guilt, but provide another item in a circumstantial chain. Should they be different, they can facilitate the suspect's release. In either case, the laboratory report provides to the requesting law enforcement agency the results of meticulous laboratory practice by highly qualified examiners, with special emphasis on the preservation of the evidential chain, characteristic of the FBI laboratory. This service is available to any law enforcement agency without charge and can be supplemented by the trial appearance of the examiner as an expert witness.